Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. So on today's video we are doing a bookshelf tour, or more appropriately my pile of books on the floor in the living room tour. I might include some on my DVDs as well. So it's actually a video in 3 parts because my books are dispersed in 3 locations. We have, here is the beautiful organised piles. The pile that doesn't want to bloody behave. Then I've got another pile of books that don't want to bloody behave in my bedroom, and then another pile of books that's actually on a shelf. Get this, but it's at home. So let's get started with the most satisfyingly aesthetic part of this whole video. So we're going to start by me just talking you through each section. This horrible pile back here are all the books that are not the same size, are not any kind of genre, are just really random and are not in any kind of series. This causes me emotional pain. There is no filing system, slightly colour coordinated, not very well unfortunately, so this makes me want to die inside. There is a gap here because there's a plug, which also makes me want to die inside. This little pile of books here is the Penguin Great Ideas books. I really highly rate these. I was going to say they're digestible, but just they're short, but philosophy, so it's very dense. We are having structural failure. Because these are in a series, they all have numbers, so they are in number order. Down here, I've got the Penguin English Library ones, for the sort of best English books, I suppose. They're in no particular order, because I've only got 3 of them. Down here are more Penguin, but these are Penguin Modern Classics. These ones are organised by author. These ones down here are my absolute pride and joy. If I can buy anything in an Oxford Classic edition, I will, because I just find them very good. All of the paratext is really helpful and interesting, so if you're studying stuff as well, these are the editions I highly rate. And all of these are then by author, and then within author by date. These ones are all of my Penguin Classics. They are, annoyingly, I've managed to do them alphabetically the other way around, so they're again by author, but we're starting A over here and going up. And over here with the Vintage Classics, we're starting A at the top and going down. I haven't had time to change it, it's quite frustrating. It's because these were on the floor here and then I picked them up and tilted them and put them. These ones are then, as I said, the Vintage Classics by author, but then by size, because they go bigger as well. And for some reason, does anybody know why they change colour between this bright red and this darker colour? Anybody? It really frustrates me. Is there a difference? What's going on there? So let's zoom you in. So let's examine the pile of shame. As you can see, there is absolutely no order to this. A lot of these books, and most of these books really are, because I'm a composite student, most of those are texts we've had to read. This is what my dad just left here, so it kind of ended up in the pile. A lot of these are plays as well. You can see here's a thing of Beckett. These are just some books I bought in a secondhand bookshop. If anybody watches Will Derbyshire, that's his book. Quite a few of these are non-fiction. That's non-fiction. This is poetry. This is also non-fiction. Don't know what this is. That was for a module. This is for a module. Defoe is really good, but I'd much prefer Roxana. We'll get on to that. Hamlet, of course. I studied this for A-level quite thoroughly, so I've kind of gone for a black theme here. Bit more red over there. This is also for a module. I bought James Joyce. I read his Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, and I really enjoyed it. I did not think, because modern it's not my thing, so I was so surprised I liked it, so I bought the Dubliners. I bought it at a book vendor on Brick Lane, but I haven't started reading it yet. Luckily it's summer, so I have a chance now, and I would really quite like to read this. Out of these, I read for a module. This mum gave me. I've actually read this one. I've read a bit of that one. I've read half of that one. These you dip in and out of. I never got around to reading that. This class was cancelled because of the strikes. I read almost all of that. It's kind of boring. I've read all of that. So yeah, I have a lot of my books I've read half of because they've been for a module or something. So yeah, to recap, most of these I have read chunks of, but not the entire thing. So let's go over here now. These are my modern classics, as I said. I've read the Virginia Woolf. This is A Room of One's Own. It's an essay. I do really highly rate this, especially if you want to like more feminist literature. Read this, it's good. It's based on a lecture she did. Oh, I think my friend Emily gave this to me. Should I see for the... Yeah, there you go. Emily leaves notes and I always keep them. I think they're fantastic. This was for a module. It's kind of... It was it was interesting. I'll leave it at that. For Literature of Empire, if anybody wants to know, I do complete, for those of you who you might have guessed from the selection of books I've got. I bought Gatsby because everybody talks about Gatsby, even though I know what happens in it. And I got Tender is the Night. I got to about half of it. It's just that I feel like with Scott Fitzgerald, he's kind of repetitive. You read a chapter and then kind of not being funny, but you've read them all because of the way he does his language. Like, yeah, it's very pretty, but for like a few pages, like keeping that up is really quite exhausting, and I don't find it very inventive. So I've only read half of it. I might try and read the rest of it, but it doesn't interest me that much. This is actually a book I bought for Chris and then never got around to giving to him, so I don't know what happens in that. This is, I've read a couple, I think he's Algerian. Camus? I don't know. I think so. I read a couple of them. They're short stories. So if you like short stories and want to read more about like Algeria, maybe this might float your boat. Now we journey up. I've never read this. I have read bits of this, but I shit you not, when I read Persuasion, I don't like Austen. I'm sorry if that deeply offends some of you. Every time I sat down to read it, and Ophelia can verify this, I fell asleep. Every single time. This is just, I just find it incredibly dull. I did it for a coursework essay for A-levels. I only read half of it because I just found it insanely dull. Insanely dull. Right, on to some of my favourite books. I absolutely adore these because they're numbered and then colour coordinated, and I actually really like philosophy. I really like it. So this is Seneca on the Shortness of Life. So basically, for those of you who don't know, they're just like little collections of essays that brand themselves as the ideas that change the world. So this is Seneca on the Shortness of Life. I really like Stoicism, so this really was, I adored this. And I don't know, there's something about the way he writes that I just think it's fantastic, and especially when you read like the Romans and stuff, some of the things he talks about, I'm like, wow, people don't change. And I like Stoicism because it's very like calm and collected and rational, and rationality is just like my favourite thing, like reason. Oh, I love it. Machiavelli the Prince. This is just sort of a classic one that I think about power, that if you it's a good one. I highly recommend. Also, I don't know if this brings you guys pain, but I write all over my copies, especially philosophy, because I think you need to like write out philosophy. Actually, the cutest thing, I bought this for myself, but then my mum had also bought it for my birthday. They're adorable. I love them. So I ended up giving that to someone. I can't remember who I gave it to. Michel de Montaigne. I absolutely adore his essays, which you will find out or with a copy I have over here, because I really can't get enough of them. Plato the Symposium, and this has got the allegory of the cave in the back of it as well. Basically, Symposium is talking a lot about love and stuff. I don't think it's just the entirety of his Voltaire's Dictionnaire Philosophique. I don't think I read all of it. Oh no, never mind. I did read all of it. If you like Voltaire, this is a good place to start. I really like Voltaire, so I really like the Enlightenment as well. I haven't read this. I haven't yet read this. Have I read bits of this? I think I have. It looks clean. No, I haven't yet. Okay, I haven't got around to reading that. I want to read John Locke as well, because he again is an Enlightenment thinker. I've read large chunks of this, especially the title essay of Immanuel Kant, What is Enlightenment? And then I haven't read Descartes' Meditations. So you can kind of see a theme in like the kind of philosophy that I like. Basically, Enlightenment and Stoic philosophy is where it's at for me. Moving on. Am I going to get all of this in short? No, right, we'll start at the bottom because that's alphabetical. These are plays, and my brother highly rates this translator, so that's why that happens. It's kind of useful to know because everything references everything else. Dante, I mean, I kind of think everyone who does literature should have a copy of the Divine Comedy. I had this for a module as well. I feel like the Inferno is really, it's kind of fun to read in all honesty, and then Paradiso is really like, I don't know, it's just, I really enjoyed it. I've never read this, but Where Angels Fear to Tread actually comes from a line of poetry from Pope. It's Fools Rush In, Where Angels Fear to Tread. I really enjoyed that line as well, so I kind of wanted to see what that did. This is Leopardi. He is an Italian poet, so this is just a collection of his poems. As you can see, the spine is cracked. I'm sorry if that pains some of you at the poems I was doing. I think I drew all over this copy as well, actually. I'm sorry, again, I draw my copies. It just means I love them more. Where is it? No, not that. I went to town. Here it is! Ta-da! I like drawing eyes when I get particularly bored. I like to think they're really hard to draw, so I try drawing them. There you go. And I like this copy as well because it's got the Italian here and the English here, so you can actually look a bit better at like wordplay and how it sounds, and then know what it means there. It's very good. I actually really enjoyed its poetry, and I'm not the biggest like fan of poetry. Goethe, like The Sorrows of Young Werther, I think is a very, if you're doing the 18th century or even like the Romantics with capital R, I think Werther is a very important text to read, but I think him as a character is a pussy. So, I mean, there's that. This is the Odyssey. I haven't started it. My brother does classics, so this is the translation he recommends. I have the Iliad, but Lottie has my copy of the Iliad and has had it for a year, so if she's not read it by now, she's not going to read it. Lottie, please return my copy. Apologies for putting you on blast on the internet, but I really want that back. This is my, as you can see, I told you I had Michel de Montaigne here, so now Mum bought me this for Christmas. It's his complete essays. This is now the longest thing I own. It's like 1,268 pages long. I have read none of them yet. This is Bellamy. This is set text for French. I've got Sappho because I'm kind of hella gay. This is Lawrence Stern. I've got one of his other books, but I didn't realise. It's an 18th century. It's called The Sentimental Journey, and it's about like people he meets on a grand tour in the 18th century. So I kind of want to read that out of pure curiosity. I've got the Aeneid. I need to read it. It's an important text. Voltaire's Candide or Optimism. I read it in a day. I was incredibly proud of myself for it. I would like to turn it into a film one day. It's a bit ridiculous, but I feel like I need to read it again once I read more like philosophy, because there's like it got banned basically. The Catholic Church banned it. You know, they banned like 40 of his works. Like, I think he's doing a good job when like the Catholic Church bans 40 of your works. But I kind of want to try and be able to read the philosophy into it and like the thoughts, because I only really at the moment understand it at face value, and I want to understand more of it. I've never read treatises on toleration. I've not read it. I want to, obviously. I own it. Voltaire's Letters on England I found was really quite interesting because, you know, it's an outsider's view on the English, which is exactly what I've got. For those of you who can't, well, you wouldn't be able to tell, I'm Belgian. Did I read this? I did read this. I read this without a pen. That's why. So yeah, he writes on like different things. Yeah, it's his thoughts on Pascal that I didn't really care too much for. So as you can see, you need to read Locke, you need to read Descartes and Newton to understand the rest of it. But I thought it was an interesting take on the 18th century. And I actually like this cover as well. I know that's superficial, but it's pretty. The last one on this pile then is classical literary criticism. It's got Aristotle in it, and does it have Plato in it? No, does it? Hang on. It does. Plato, Aristotle, Horace, and Longinus are the people we looked at in terms of like what they thought poetry and drama should be. If you are doing anything creative writing, anything like that, it is worth reading. But especially Aristotle, it comes up again and again and again. So it's worth going to the original and learning. It's a good source. Basically, read Aristotle's Poetics and Horace, The Art of Poetry. Then you're set. Down we go. So I like Tolstoy. I like War and Peace. I really liked it. I got halfway. As you can see, but I was fine. I read 600 pages of it. It's the most irritating achievement I have is I read half of War and Peace. Like, I haven't read it recently enough to pick it off from where I left off, but I've read it too recently to start from the beginning again. So I'm like in a really frustrating point of like, I basically can't, I have to read it again from the beginning, but it hasn't been long enough for me to do that. It's really, really fucking annoying. But the way he does battle scenes, it's great. Like, omniscient narrators with that. And he writes himself in as well. So I kind of find that's quite funny. Because I've been enjoying that, I also bought this, but I haven't had a chance to dip into it yet. I bought Don Quixote because I had to for a module in first year. As you can see, I have not read it. Will I ever read it? I don't know. I feel like it's quite important with some of my other texts, so, because everything links back together. So this is, I want to read it, because it's important, and it would make sense with everything else. And I would enjoy it, question mark. Up here we have, this is a play, this is Edward Albee's Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. I quite like sort of, not that this is really absurdist, but I like 1950s theatre quite a bit. This is one of my favourite plays. I've never seen it, but I have the film with Liz Taylor and Richard Burton, which someone has nicked, so it's not in my pile down here. If you haven't seen it, it's fantastic and very, very close to the original play. So I would highly recommend. This is Calvino's If on a Winter's Night Traveller. It's a really odd book. I bought it because we did it for an unseen and it really interested me. So I want to try and like read it because it kind of makes you go, You'll read it and then it says, now go to chapter 5, now go to chapter 7, now go back to chapter 1. So it's kind of like, it's not a normal linear structure, and I really like that. Angela Carter, Bloody Chamber. Had to buy this for school. Didn't really enjoy it. This one I bought because it's set in the Congo and I'm Belgian, so I do have an interest in that. This is Nancy Mitford's Madame Pompadour. Oh my bloody god. If you like history but you don't really want to read that much of a history book, this, highly recommend. I'm going to turn this into a film one day. It's fan-bloody-tastic, and now I really love Madame Pompadour. I'm a bit obsessed with 18th century Versailles. I mean, a bit obsessed, a lot obsessed. Love, 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 love. If anybody doesn't know, also the Mitford sisters are like a legend in their own. I've got Rusty's Midnight Children. I haven't read it. It was for the exam I just did. 600 pages? I was never going to read it in a week. Virginia Woolf, Mrs. Alloway. I've also never tried to read that. I actually nicked it off Mum. I might read it one day. Maybe. Now to my pride and joy. Out of all of my books, these are the ones I've, like, you know, actually read. I had to buy this for a module. I really don't like Austen. And I have an annoying thing with all of my Austen, right, is that they're all in different editions. Like, I've got one here, got one here. Like, what is the point? Why are they all different? It's very, very, very frustrating. Beckford, this is Vatek. It's weird. Got some Aphra Ben. She was short stories. I think she's a playwright, mainly. So is Chekhov. I don't know, I thought this was nice. And I kind of was going through, like, a phase of, like, Russian literature. This is Lord Byron. Lord Byron does a lot of poetry. The only ones I've read out of here are Canto 4 of Harold Pilgrim. This is Byron in Albanian dress. You can go see it in the National Portrait Gallery. So yeah, it's got Child Harold's Pilgrimage, which is kind of like, you know, the grand tours that the 18th century do. And then it's also the other one that I actually cared about was She Walks Like Beauty in the Night. Here we go. I was bored, so I doodled on it. I tried to memorise the first verse, but I didn't. I just know the first line, which is like, she walks in beauty like the night on cloudless climes and starry skies. These are the other doodles that accompany the rest of the poem. When we did Child Harold, as you can see, this is where I was actually learning from it. Here we go. The bit that I've doodled is from a painting, and I'll try and find it for you, but I was doodling that. It's a good edition. I really, really like these. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of the Romantics, The Century Before is a much more my jam. To date, this is my favourite book of all time. This is Defoe's Roxana. I adore this. I absolutely fucking adore this. I will do anything to be able to write on this in my dissertation. I basically have, like, designed my dissertation to be able to write on this. Like, it's fantastic. I know people say that, like, Robinson Crusoe is, like, the start of the novel, but really, I think this is crap. And I think this is fantastic, and I don't know why we don't talk enough about it. Like, it's so good, especially in the way it deals with marriage in the 18th century. Bloody fantastic. So if you like sort of more sex and drama and, like, gossip and money, this is fan-fucking-tastic. I live out being an 18th century duchess or princess through these books, if that's what everyone is wondering. Moving on through the 18th century, as you've seen, we are going in alphabetical order. This is Diderot Renan. Bought this for a module, never read it. This was for my A-level coursework. It's on marriage. I bought this at a book sale. Never read it. This is on marriage. Again, all of these basically are 18th century. Are any of these not 18th century? Okay, early 19th century. Most of these are 18th century. Then I've got Henry Fielding. I've read 40 pages of Joseph Andrews. Johnson's Rasselas. Samuel Johnson wrote the Dictionary Johnson. This is weird. It's set in Abyssinia, which is Ethiopia. So if you want to read more, like, kind of weirdy, adventure-y kind of stuff, that and Vathek, if you read them together, would kind of make more sense. Charlotte Lennox, the female Quixote. It's not Quixote, it is Quixote. I read this for a module. I bloody loved it. So I actually read the whole thing, which never, ever, ever happens. But basically, this book is, like, about the dangers of women reading. Again, I'm going to use this in my dissertation. And it is kind of based on Don Quixote. It's the idea of it, like, she's reading these 17th century romantic novels, and it all goes to her head and it all goes horribly, horribly wrong. It's fantastic. I find it quite tongue-in-cheek, though. Also about female authors. So yeah, I read the whole fucking thing. How impressed are you with me? Where is my gold star? And yes, this is my revision for the exam I did on this. High key rate this if the 18th century is your jam. trying to make sure my books don't all fall over. That would be a disaster. Over here we have some Alexander Pope. I think it's really fun. It's essentially all in like Alexandrian couplets, which I'm weirdly good at writing. Don't ask me why, but I'm weirdly good at it. Am I going to destroy all of my books? This is Pope. And it's his essay on criticism, which I think is the most important one. And I think it has the rape of a lock in here as well. Rape in terms of theft, and lock in terms of a lock of hair. Is that one in here? I don't know if it is. No. The famous one that's in here is the Dunciad. It's like a mock. Him as he's done it, Voltaire's done it. Voltaire wrote the Voltaire wrote the Oniryad, and he's done the Dunciad. And I really want to write my own little mock epic poem based on a member of my family. I'll leave it at that. Yeah, it does have the rape of a lock in. I stand corrected. Also, if you want to consider rape as theft in the 18th century, the etymology of the word then is quite interesting, don't you think? So yeah, if you like the 18th century, again, this is good. This is all 18th century, and I bought it because I liked it. Pope is one of my personal faves. And yeah, I know, it's poetry, and I don't really like poetry too much. I do when it's funny, though. Here we have my Radcliffe Collection, of which I have read none of them. This is Samuel Richard's Pamela, which while it was like praised for like its moral like guidance and fantastic moral guidance in churches, the Catholic Church banned it. So I want to talk about that in my dissertation because that seems odd to me. This is Madame de Stael. I really like this. This I also read in its entirety. This is really good. It's also really influential at the time. Again, it's romantic. It says the girl who says she hates romanticism. Read the entire thing. And I did an essay on this, and I did well on that essay. I like this if you want a love story that's kind of with the more melancholy characters. Basically, by that I mean men being absolute pussies. Like, that is just, for romantics, I'm just like, I just want to yell at them to pull themselves together. But if you like melancholy and like romantic men, you might like that. Standard, the red and the black. Le rouge et le noir. Not the time period I'm my fave on. It's like just after the Restoration in France. It's okay. He really likes Napoleon. Lawrence Sterne. I read a bit of this. It's a bit more, it's quite odd. It really does, we were talking about it in terms of a novel, and he really does play around with it, because at this point the novel as a genre is not really defined. So he really kind of plays with it and does, I'll show you some. Like, this book starts like before his birth. He's narrating it before he is conceived, which is weird. He does stuff like this. Like, I haven't drawn that in there. That was printed in there. And stuff like this. This is just what it was like. I don't really understand it. Still don't. So if you want something a bit more out there, maybe this is for you. And finally, over here in the corner, this is Wollstonecraft, Mary and the Wrongs of Women, the fictional sequel to Wollstonecraft, A Vindication of the Rights of Women. It also does have a vindication of the rights of men, if anybody was wondering, but it's significantly shorter to the rights of women. It's a really interesting, that's where I got to. It's a really, I got notes and everything. So if you're very interested in like proto-feminism, you should read this. Quite funny how often she calls men tyrants. Nowadays we just say men are trash. I probably need to read the rest of this. And she talks about the French Revolution as well. So again, this is making its way into my dissertation one way or another. So if you want to read anything about feminism, you have to start with this, basically. Here is a quick look at some of the DVDs I have there. Just soak it in. You can pause. Also, lol, this is 4 hours long. I did watch it. It's on 2 separate discs. Now we're going to progress to the bedroom. In here, my books live back here. These books, again, they're kind of like the other shelf. They don't really make sense. This is a book I bought for complete. This is a copy of Madame Bovary I've never read. This is a book Ophelia bought for me. This is something that you're told to buy at GCSE. If you're doing GCSEs now in English, that's helpful. This is Antonia Fraser's biography of Marie Antoinette. It's what Sofia Coppola based her version of the film on. This is Mario Puzo, The Godfather. Never read it. I really need to read it. I've got the other 2 as well at home. This is Germaine Greer. If you want to know about like more second wave feminism, this is a thing to read. This we just got given in school. This is a book about film. If you've watched Sex and the City, this is Love Letters of Great Men, and this is Love Letters of Great Women, which gets referenced in it. That's some Sartre, and that is Petit Prince, because we all need that in our lives. Then up here we have some of my more YouTube books. This is Louise Pentland's debut novel. This is Hannah Whitten's book. This is a book that Hannah Whitten recommended, the essays that I haven't read yet. These are notebooks, and this is just French. This is Harry Styles' novel? CD. This is Henry Miller, The World of Sex. Yeah. And as I explained, I have 3 places I keep my books, so we are now in the 3rd and the final place. I am at home in my childhood bedroom. Some of you may have been here before. It's a beautiful day today. This is the bookshelf that I have in here. So everything here really is a bit more dated. Actually, let's just start at the bottom. This shelf is a large chunk of my Vogues. It's not all of them, as you can see there's a pile there, but they go all the way from February 2011, because I didn't realise at the time that they always put them out a month beforehand. So I went in January to fetch January, and it was February. It's got Victoria Beckham on the cover. If it will come out, well, you can kind of see, it says it. So that's this one, and then above here, it kind of goes up in maturity, basically, as we go up. So these are all of my, like, kids fiction that I've got. These really aren't organised in any particular way. As you can see here, I've got the Roald Dahl ones, and I've got the Michael Morpurgo. I loved Roald Dahl and Michael Morpurgo. I credit with my love of reading. I absolutely adored them. This book, it's called Nevermore. Oh my god, I think I read it maybe... God, I read this so many times. It's fantastic. I absolutely adored it. And there's just kind of some like more play kind of, they're not really reading books, they're kind of just random books. I've obviously got a record journal here. This is a really cool dictionary I've got. It's spelling by like phonetics. So for dyslexia, that was really great when I was little. It's like a big collection of Roald Dahl books. This I got in one of those World Book Fair things, but I actually never read any of them. I think I was just a bit too old when I got those. So this is my like kiddie book section, and then this is my camera shelf. But up here we're starting to get into some more mature books. Obviously, as everyone my age does, I have my Harry Potter books. Then I was so into the Dan Brown books. I've read, there's another one up there as well. I think I read almost all of them. I really loved those. They were some of the biggest books I'd actually read at the time though, because remember, I'm dyslexic. These though, I think these were the first two like classics I ever read. And as you can see, I absolutely adored them. I've read them so many times, cover to cover. So here there's really no organisation. And then, well, like, this kind of gets darker because, I don't know, maybe I'm, what, 14, 15 reading these. I bought these two. I read I think I read Twilight, half of this, and hated it, so I just didn't finish reading them. I love the films, though. These are fantastic. It's very, like, I like fantasy stuff, so that was really cool. So that's this kind of more maturing sort of stuff. And then this shelf is much more my favourite. I do contemplate if I should take these ones down to London with me, because I still sort of need some of these books sometimes. A bit more order here. So a lot of these I have them read and I need them for school as well. So I've got Jekyll and Hyde, Dorian Gray, Cold Comfort Farm. You can tell which ones I enjoyed and which ones I didn't. Bless her, Mum did try and get me to read Jane Austen with some nice editions, but it didn't really work. I've got this off my brother, I think. There's some Dostoevsky. Some of this is more like theatre stuff that I had to do for school. So this is then the layover of my sixth form education, some things I still want to read, but need to read the other ones for. This is then my like kind of, I never read YA fiction. I don't read YA fiction. I think that's as close as I got to it. I've never been into that. I don't know why. I know a lot of people really, really love it, and that does make up a lot of people's bookshelves, but I'm way more into like more classic stuff. And then this is just, as a child, that was great. I read a lot of the Anthony Horowitz, Alex Rider books. I loved those, but they're actually my brother's, so I kept nicking them off him. So I'm surprised that I managed to get this one into my room. That's the childhood bookshelf done. So yeah, guys, that is all of the books that I have. I've tried to stop acquiring more, because on my 30 for 30 list, I've put to read all the books I own. So you know, I've got some work to do. But yeah, I really hope this has floated your boat. It certainly has floated mine. But yeah, if you would like me to do a video on my favourite books, please let me know down below. I would really, really appreciate that. If I've done that video by this point, it'll be linked up there. I make videos every Tuesday, Thursday and Sunday, if you're down for a weekly vlog. All of those go up at 8 GMT time, internet permitting. Like, subscribe and all that jazz, and I will see you guys very, very soon. Bye. Don't mind me, just sat on the floor filming, like, you know, I was having a good makeup day. Still light out, I was gonna make the most of it.